Hello everybody and welcome back to Teresa's Corner. I am Teresa Ruiz and I'd like to thank you all for choosing to spend your time with me. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I'm going to introduce you to my Oncidium collection, and when I say Oncidium, I find this term to be very broad, right? Or at least to me. So Oncidiums, right? I'm referring to Wilsonaras, Miltonia hybrids. In some parts of the world, I believe mostly Europe, they're known as Cambrias, which is just a commercial name for intergeneric hybrids, right? Some of the crosses or species that are in these hybrids are and forgive my pronunciation, but I know I'm going to butcher something. So odontoglossums, Oncidiums, Miltonias, or in the Cambria cross. So the care for these orchids, right? I find them to be easy to care for as long as you meet. Their care can vary, right? Depending on the type of crosses that you have. That's why it's important that sometimes you know what crosses were used for your specific orchid, because that's going to determine what type of care you provide for it, and it's going to ensure that you provide what your plant requires. So for most of these Oncidiums, right, they vary. They come from like sea level tropic areas to high altitude elevations in the Andes. You know, so the temperatures vary, but they're considered intermediate to warm growers. They can tolerate high temperatures, I know that for sure. These plants will pretty much acclimate to your temperature or to your environment, your growing environment, right? So I live in California, where we typically have nice weather all year round. During the winter it gets cold, but not like freezing cold, right? So I grow mine indoors during the winter, and then during spring all the way through the fall they're out there. I grow them in a greenhouse, and the greenhouse stays outside. I do grow them under LED lights to be able to meet the high light requirement that they have. So that's how I keep up with the high level of light that these required. They do very good outside too. I have one that has been out for almost a year and it's doing fantastic. And but yeah, that's pretty much what they require for the growing, right? High lights. They love their moisture or their water. They're thirsty plants. As long as you have good drainage, you'll be fine. And then there are some other ones that I have as well that are more into the cooler growers. And I'm going to include my Miltoniopsis or my Miltonias in this video, because Miltonias are a cross, or is a species used to make these crosses or these Cambrias, right? So that's why I'm going to include these in here. So let's get started. What you see here is my Oncidium Eye Candy Pinky, and you guys have seen this one. I've had it for a few months now. I love it. Look at the colors, the variation of colors, the lining of the sepals and petals are like pink. It's like, I wouldn't call them polka dots, but it's spotted and it's like a red, and that vibrant lip here, and you know, the flirty lip. Mine is fragrant, you guys. I detect like a jasmine scent, very sweet. And I mean, look at it, it's just beautiful. And every flower, you guys, every flower is different. That's what I love about this one. Look at this one. You see that? They're just beautiful. The foliage looks pretty good on this one. When I bought it, right, I brought it from a greenhouse, and of course there's a lot of humidity there, and I couldn't meet the humidity requirements, right? So what I did was that I pulled it out of the pot. I pretty much up potted, right? Because the pot was just too small, and I felt like it needed to be repotted anyway. So what I did is that I pulled it from the old pot and I put it in this ceramic pot, and I just added bark around it. And so that's how I kept the roots intact. I was trying not to damage it, because when I bought this orchid, the eye candy pinky, it was just, the buds had not opened. They were still developing, and I wanted to see the blooms, right? But this is what I mean, right? When I brought it home, like I said, I couldn't keep up with the humidity or the water or the moisture level that it needed, and I was afraid that I was going to overwater during the winter. So I wasn't adding enough moisture to the pot, and it started shriveling. Once I realized that I needed more moisture, I just started watering more often. Of course, I let it dry. It's a nice airy place, and then there's no sitting water, right? So it started to do better. The pseudobulbs didn't shrivel anymore, and some of them actually, the shriveling kind of went away. This one, you can tell that it's not that shriveled. This you see here is part of the pseudobulb. It's not like shriveled. This one here is shriveled, and you can tell the difference. And it's just a little bit, like I said, but because that was when I first brought it, right? I couldn't keep up with the moisture. Here I have the Hilo Ablaze, the Oncidium Hilo Ablaze, and as you can see, it has some brown leaves, and it's okay. It's gonna lose some leaves, but it's just normal. It's from an older pseudobulb. And this one put out a few pseudobulbs. My mistake when I first got it, right, was that I bought it from the same nursery where I bought my eye candy, and they just have a high level of humidity there. It is a greenhouse, and I didn't want to repot it because I didn't want to lose the blooms, and I didn't add enough water once again, so my pseudobulbs shriveled. And you can see here my older pseudobulbs completely shriveled. They're doing fine now. I had to repot it, and I do have a repot video. I'll put the description or the tag right above, so in case you're interested. But look, the newer pseudobulbs here, and you can tell this one is a newer pseudobulb. The newer pseudobulb didn't grow as big as the other ones. One, it's because it was stressed from the repot, and the lack of moisture stressed it out a little bit. Let me show you the other one. This is another newer pseudobulb, but it's still developed. It's fine. It's already putting out 2 more new growths, so I think it bounced back pretty quick. If you watch my video, I actually had to cut those roots. It was just pretty bad, and I'm pretty surprised that it's actually bouncing back pretty quick. It was probably the best thing I did to be able to help this orchid. But you see this new growth here? There's one there, and there's another one in between. You guys have seen it in bloom before. I love these beautiful yellow and like brown flowers. I mean, the blooms are like almost, the size of my palm. I found them to be pretty big. But yeah, I have it in a clay pot, and I just have a bunch of holes. So if you see down here, I didn't have anything smaller, and I didn't want to add, so I've noticed that this is one of the mistakes I make. I'll end up potting in a really big pot so that I don't have to repot that often. So then the top part of the pot dries out and then the bottom is still wet. So then it rots my roots. So what I did this time around is that I used styrofoam, those styrofoam peanuts. You can see them there, to prevent that from happening. And then I can feel that the moss is still pretty moist. So that has been helping me to keep this orchid from, or at least from me overwatering it, because you don't want it sitting in soggy media, but you want to provide that moisture it requires, right? So that's how I'm preventing it. Do let me know how you guys do it, especially if you're in a dry area like me. But yeah, this is my Hilo Oncidium Blaze, you guys. Here is the Oncidium Sherry Baby Sweet Fragrance. And you guys have seen this before. I have it actually mounted. And this was my very first Sherry Baby. And I hope you can see. Let me see if I can get that in there. You see that? There's a new growth. So I bought this one late 2019, I believe like November, December. And a few months later I mounted it, and it's been here since. This is my first Oncidium mounted, and the roots are pretty much all the way down here. I had to add a little more moss, because this is the moss that it had at first, just right there in that root ball that it had. And I've noticed that the roots expanded all the way down here, and they were just drying up too quick. So I added a layer of moss all the way down here. The way I secured it is that I used a staple. Hopefully you see it there. A staple. So I used the stapler, and I stapled the moss to the log. And I'm hoping it's going to bloom this year. I love how it looks. Alright guys, so the next one up is the Wilhelmina Pinot Princess Scary. And this is a very, very dark, spidery looking flower. And I'll put a picture up here. When I bought it, it was in bloom. And once again, I had to repot. I bought from the same nursery, high humidity, same issues. So my pseudobulbs started to shrivel, and you can tell that I caught it in time to where I was able to somewhat keep my pseudobulbs from completely shriveling and looking like raisins. But yeah, so let me show you. I have some nice roots in the pot. So you see this green tip here? So this is a green tip. There's another one coming here. You can barely see it, but look at those roots. And this root's still growing, that one's still growing, and I have more roots. So it's doing great. Of course, the pseudobulb is not gonna, it's gonna continue growing, but I don't think it's gonna get as big as the first pseudobulbs. Once again, I had to repot, and I'll put the description of the video here in case you guys are interested in watching. But I had to cut away most of the roots as well. But as you can see, they're very resilient. I do keep them, like I said, in my greenhouse. My greenhouse during the summer, it gets up to like high 90s, possibly 100. I haven't really seen it throughout the day, but I know it gets up there. And I have two small fans going and my humidifier, so they love that conditions. They grow pretty quick. So the next one, and this is not really an Oncidium, but it requires the same care. This one here is the Psychopsis Mariposa Green Valley, and I will post a picture of it. And as you can see, I just recently repotted into a smaller pot, because like I said, I've been potting I've been over potting, right? So I've been using larger pots than I should, which creates a big problem for me. Top half of my media dries out, the bottom stays very moist. By the time I water again, it's just soggy. So this one has 2 spikes. It did have 2 buds, and they dried out, and that's because I pretty much rotted the roots. That was me not knowing how to care for this. I've recently learned that you can pretty much treat it like an Oncidium. That's why I'm adding it here. It requires the same cares for it, or at least from what I've learned. And I'm hoping it's gonna bounce back quick. This one here, you guys have seen it in bloom. Look at the new pseudobulb. It started kind of growing outwards because of the LED lights I had. I didn't have enough, and it was trying to grow towards the direction of the light, like most plants do. It was searching for the light, so that's why it kind of grew outwards and then sideways. I eventually put lights right over it, so it started kind of correcting its pattern. But this is the Rex shoot. I'll put the name on the description. I forgot the name. But it's beautiful yellow green spidery looking flowers. I think it's like Rex Varietylea, and it's beautiful. It's not fragrant, at least I didn't detect any fragrance, but look at the pseudobulbs. This pseudobulb developed under my care, and it started growing a new one. As you can see, the pseudobulbs on this one are not shriveled. This one, I feel like it's been a little more resistant, way more resilient than my other orchids, way more forgiving than the other ones for sure. But yeah, I love this one. Okay, so these 2 here are no ID, and these are my oldest Oncidiums. I bought them at the Spring Valley Swap Meet when I first moved to San Diego, and I was gone for 6 months, and my husband and my mom ended up taking care of my orchids, yeah, they weren't doing so well. By the time I got back, I just had 2 dry pseudobulbs, and I thought I would try to save them, and I put them in my my community tray, and they've done well. And I'll put the description of the link or a little tag so you can see how I was taking care of these. This one literally was just this pseudobulb, and you can tell that it was very dry, very dry. This one was the newest pseudobulb, and it started drying out once I removed them from the community tray. Once I realized that they were doing good, I pulled them out from the community tray, and I pot them in my regular pots. A regular, you know, where I wanted them to stay. It did put out new growth, so it's doing good. They both did, actually. So this pseudobulb here is what grew from being in the community tray. This one here and this one. Once again, once I removed them from the community trays, the community wasn't there, and it put out new growth. Both of them did, and they're slightly smaller, but it's okay. They're bouncing back. I don't know what they are because I don't remember. Once again, there were no tags. I'll put the pictures of what I think might be. I have like 4 or 5, but I don't know which ones they are. We'll find out when they bloom. But look at those roots. Look at those roots. They are doing great. This one is the other one, and look at that. So you can definitely save them. They're very resilient. Trust me, I know. These were some old dry pseudobulbs when I came back, and you can see them right here. Eventually I'll cut them off once they're more established. Right now I think it doesn't hurt to keep them there. Alright guys, so these 4 here are my Amazon unboxing. If you guys recall, I'll once again link the video, but if you guys haven't seen it yet. But yeah, anyway, so I ordered 5 from Amazon, and they were pretty much seedlings, and they're doing fantastic. I did lose one. I think I got water on the new growth and it rotted, and the old pseudobulb just rotted as well, so I ended up throwing it out. But this one here is the Wilsonara Joe Vanilla first out, and beautiful picture. I mean, beautiful bloom. This one here, I think was one of the smallest plants. The pseudobulb wasn't fully developed. As you can see, it already has a new growth coming in right there. But yeah, it's doing good. Look at that new growth. Yay. The other one was the Heavenly Scent Sweet Baby, and it's a Sherry Baby variety. And look at that new growth. I'm very excited. I hope it blooms soon. I don't know if they're ready. They look pretty premature, pretty small. But yeah, the other one, and this is one of the larger ones, and it's still, look at those bulbs, still nice and plump. No shrivels, new growth there. And this one here is another Sherry Baby, the Heaven Scent Rainbow. I really hope they bloom soon. I'd like to smell some of the Sherry Babies. This one here is a Abrasia hybrid, and it's a Gildan Orchid Ontario yellow. And this one almost reminds me of the Oncidium Hilo Ablaze. Look at that growth. Pseudobulb was a little dry, it was shriveled when I got it, and then it started growing. You can tell that when I received it, all the pseudobulb had not fully matured, so it's fully grown out now. And look at that new growth. The next one up is the Wilsonara Hilda Plum Tree Purple Wing, and you guys have seen it in bloom as well. It has a new growth. It actually had two, and I got water on one of them. And it rotted. I ended up cutting it away, but because I didn't want it to spread. I also had it in a bigger pot, and it was a mistake, so I pulled it out. I damaged some of the roots, so I set it back a little bit, but look, I hope you can see that there. They're new roots. It's doing well. I watered with rainwater a few days ago. That's why you can see them still wet. I won't be watering for another week or two. But yeah, look at that. Beautiful, right? Alright guys, so this one here is a Miltonia cross. It's the Bartley Swart, and I love it. Look at the roots on this one. Lots of roots. And I've realized that these like it cooler, like a lot more moisture. I had them in my greenhouse, and they actually did pretty good considering that the temperatures got pretty high. As long as I kept water in the pot, and I would just add water, and it would sit in a little bit of water. It did really good, you guys. I was very worried that during the summer it would get too hot, and I started bringing it in, right, and then I just stopped, and they did really good. You can tell one of the signs, right, that you'll know when it needs water, because the leaves start growing out like accordions. You see that? So I actually forgot to water it once, and it dried out. Like completely dried out. And I never do that. Never let this one dry out. At least I don't. And see, right now this is pretty dry to me. I know there's some moisture in there. I would give it like one more day, and then I would water. But as you can see, it's very airy. I have a lot of rocks in there, bark, and moss. So it's not like it's sitting in like sitting water. Look at that. The roots started coming through. But yeah, like I said, I never let it dry out. I might just water it. Next one up is the Miltonia Morris Chestnut. And you're gonna realize that it's looking a little bare. And that's because, you guys, it was a tragedy, like tragedy. A month or two ago, I sprayed all my orchids with Orthene, and I didn't check the weather ahead of time, and it started raining. So then I was like, well, they're already out. Might as just let them get watered. So I thought it had completely dried out, and I didn't pay too much attention, and it rotted my growth, and the growth was already pretty big. Like the little suitable was already developing. But you can tell that this one wants to continue growing, and look. Yay! Right? I'm very excited. Like I said, it's the same thing with this one. Actually, all these Miltonias crosses, I do not let them dry out. The media never dries out completely. Once I notice that it's looking dry like the one before, this one I can still go like 2-3 more days. But yeah, look at those roots. See that? Roots. It's doing good. I haven't killed it. Same thing with this one, you guys. During the summer I thought it was gonna hate the greenhouse, and it actually did pretty good. And like I said, as long as you have water in the pot, you'll be fine. I never exposed them to direct sunlight though. That was my mistake. I had my very first Miltonia. I killed it. I came home and I found that my husband had done a really good job, and it had like 4 little new growths, and I set it out in front of the window, and yeah, it completely burnt. Do not do that. It started yellowing and then everything just died. This one I bought recently, and let me show you. You guys, this one smells citrusy and soapy at the same time. It's hard to explain, but it's beautiful. Alright guys, this is it. This is my Oncidium collection. If you guys have any questions, comments, tips for me, or any concerns for me, do leave those in the comments below. I do respond to my comments. I try to do it on a daily basis. Sometimes I can go weeks without it, but eventually I do get to it. So please leave those in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I'd like to invite you to subscribe and hit the little bell to receive notifications. I do post once a week. So yeah guys, you guys have a good day. Bye.